Okay, rebuilding a B43G. This is a B43G that I'm going to rebuild. Just a couple interesting notes about this engine. Compression on the left side was 75, and compression on the right side was 90. We did it right before we took it out of the tractor. We're just going to basically hone it and put new rings in, make sure all the parts are in spec, and then move on. One thing that you may notice is this, the fuel pump, or the line going to the crankcase for the fuel pump is capped off because this tractor did have an electric fuel pump. This is an older engine. It's from 1985, so it's got the dash pot, and it's also got points up here. You can see the points right there. So this is a 43 cubic inch engine rather than the 48 cubic inch P218, and it's got the points ignition rather than the electronic ignition. Basically I'm going to do two videos for the breakdown. One of all the exterior components, so tins, flywheel, carburetor, exhaust, PTO, and whatnot. And then I'm going to turn around and do one for all the internal components, pistons, crankshaft, and everything else. And then we'll probably do one for honing the cylinders out. And then as soon as we get done with that, we'll turn around and we'll start doing doing videos for reassembly. So hopefully it's educational.
Yep.
Okay, removal of the drive shaft. What you need is a 1/2 inch socket, and you need an extension for a ratchet. Pretty simple process. It's a matter of the engine's going to want to turn on you. And you can just take and loosen all 4 of them up first. And by loosening all 4 of them up first, it's not going to fall off. You can also use a little electric impact for this. Either one is fine. I like doing it this way personally, but so now that I've got all 4 loose, I'm basically just going to support the drive shaft. Set these down. And holding up the drive shaft will let you, the nuts will come out a lot easier. The bolts will come out a lot easier. And just like that, the drive shaft's off. So now that we have the drive shaft off, now we need to take the PTO off. In this case, I'm going to use a 9/16 inch socket on just my electric or cordless impact. First, you have to take this front basically holder off. I said I was going to do that. I clearly need more. Alright, now that I have a bigger setup here, now we can take these bolts off. So what you've got here is this is just basically it holds on the PTO. And then after that, you want to take your front portion of the PTO off. I've done this in a previous video, so I'm not going to do a whole lot of explanation in this case. Remember, when you put your PTO back on, you will have to redo the gap. If you've used never sees or anti-sees on here, which you can see evidence of it on here, it should come right off without a problem. So now we're just going to take all these parts, set them down. We're going to take the clutch plate off, and that leaves us with the field coil. And the field coil is held on by 4 9/16 inch bolts. We're going to take those off, switching between ratchets when we need to. So that takes care of our field coil. So we take our field coil off, and now what we're going to do is we're going to reassemble all this to keep it safe. And the next thing we're going to do is we're going to take the exhaust off, and we're going to take this PTO clutch plate off. Alright, next step in disassembly, we're going to take this front heat shield off. There's actually a total of, there's really just 3 screws that hold this on, but I'm going to take off the other 2 that hold these exhaust covers on right now. And so I'm just using the electric impact again, just because it makes it easy. As I've said in all my videos, sometimes the use of an impact to take things apart is okay. Sometimes the use to put them back together is certainly not okay. Now you can kind of see these bolts down here. I'm going to go ahead and take those off, since I've already got the impact set up for that. And then I'm going to work on taking the exhaust off. Taking the exhaust off, I'm going to swap over sockets, and next what I'm going to do is, you have the exhaust is held on by these two these U-bolts right here. There's one on each side, and I'm going to go ahead and undo those a little bit. Hopefully the electric impact works, and it does not. So a lot of times you have to go get a wrench, just a 1/2 inch wrench will work in most cases. And by getting a 1/2 inch wrench, a lot of times you can work them. Broke off. So, a little old and rusted. So, we'll see if this side works any better. Yeah, this side will work. I was hoping I'd get lucky and I could use electric impact to do this, but sometimes manual tools just work. You really don't need to loosen them all that much in most cases. Look for it to come off. Because really all you want to do is just take the muffler off. So now that we've done a little bit of that, what I'm going to do is use the 9/16 inch, and I'm going to take these two bolts off right here. Those actually hold the muffler on. Once again, not going to work. So we're going to swap over to a ratchet. Yeah, there we go. So you got these two bolts to take off, and then once those two bolts are off, what you can do is, hopefully we'll be able to pull the muffler off. Even though that one U-bolt broke. And it doesn't look like we're going to be able to. So we've got to do a little bit of work on this other U-bolt. See if we can get it squared away. Loosen it a little bit. There we go. Okay, that one's loose, and this other one still needs to be loosened up some more. Okay, there we go. Now we should be able to just pull it off like that. Now we have our muffler. And then after the muffler, this PTO adapter plate, we need a 5/16 inch Allen wrench. In this case, I've got a socket and these two bolts down here. Just take it off. Obviously, I'm not batting very good with the electric impact today, so sometimes it's just good to go the old-fashioned route. And now these bolts right here go directly into the crankcase. So when you put them back in, you will have to seal them up with thread sealant, as with any of the bearing plate bolts. That one was a little tough. So now, once this bolt's out, I should be able to pull this bearing or this PTO adapter plate off. So that's how you get basically the front of the engine apart. You can see the oil on the end of that. That just shows you that it goes directly into the crankcase. So that's how you take the exhaust and the PTO adapter plate off. Alright, now that we've got our muffler and our PTO off and our PTO adapter plate, I've already removed the coil and the condenser and undone the wiring harness. That's pretty self-explanatory. Plus it doesn't make a really good video because my hands are so big and I cover up most everything that you're going to be able to see. So after we've got everything else apart, now we're going to start taking off the engine tins. Basically what you need is a 1/2 inch socket and you need a 3/8 socket. For the 1/2 inch, what we're going to do, the two lift brackets are bolted down by 1/2 inch bolts. And so we're going to take that off. And since we've already undone these up front here, what we can do is I should be able to, you see all the tin move when we did that, and now we can just lift this off. And we're going to do the same thing to the other side. And then we can lift this one off, or so I thought. We might have to, oh, we've got to take this off, the oil pan. So what we're going to do is now we're going to come back to this side. We're going to take all of these 3/8. This just holds the voltage regulator on, but I'm going to go ahead and take it off just that way we have less components to worry about. We can put the voltage regulator to the side and not have to worry. Oops. So now the voltage regulator is down in the engine. I'll have to dig that out. Because my plan was I was going to put it to the side and keep it safe, but obviously falling down in there, that's not going to keep it safe. So for each side, there's anywhere from 3 to 4 nuts that will hold everything on. The fourth one or the third one's up here. And you'll see that every time I loosen one, that panel will kind of spring out more and more. One important thing to know is, oh, there's not one down the bottom. There should be one right down here, underneath here. We'll save the voltage regulator, but it wasn't there. So we'll put that back on when we put it back together. We'll set this panel aside and we'll come over and work on the other side. So what we're going to do here, this exhaust cover will not come out because the oil dipstick holder is in its way, which also this bolt right here actually goes through to the intake. So when you take this one off, you're actually undoing half or a quarter of the intake. So that's something to be mindful of in terms of make sure you torque it back down correctly with the proper specs. Sorry, my wrench or my socket or my ratchet's flashing back and forth in front of the camera. So now what we can do is we can take this out, we can swing this to the side, and we can pull that exhaust cover out. And for right now, I'm just going to go ahead and stick this bolt back down in here. And I'm going to come back with the 3/8 and I'm going to continue taking off these bolts to hold these engine tins on. This is one of those things, I'm just going to walk around. This is one of those things that really kind of tripped me up when I first started, is trying to find all of the bolts that hold the tin on. Just be patient. If the piece doesn't come off, look for more bolts attaching it. And there's that one. So now we've got everything but the flywheel cover off, and the flywheel cover we'll do next. Okay, next to take the flywheel cover off, all we need here is just the 3/8 socket again. And there's going to be, I think, 3 bolts that hold the flywheel cover on. There's going to be this top one here. And then what we're going to need to do is kind of pick the engine up. And there's going to be 2 down here. Oh, we're making a mess. One thing to note that I just realized, we took the front PTO cover off, and to show you how everything goes through, we see we have oil leaking out the front of the engine from those PTO bolts. So just something to note when you do this. Okay, so now that we've done that and we've made an absolute mess of everything, we're gonna pull this off. One thing I did forget to do is we have to take this governor spring off, and there, now we should just be able to work this cover off. It may take a little bit to get this cover off, but we've got to clean up the oil mess. Okay, to remove the fly, now we have the outside or the flywheel cover off. To remove the flywheel, what we're going to do is the flywheel bolt in here is it's 5/8, and so what we've already done is we've loosened this flywheel bolt right here, and then after we've loosened the flywheel bolt, you have to leave it in, and we use this puller right here. And basically what I like to use is, I've got some spare head bolts around, and I just basically put the head bolts in to the flywheel, make sure they're not good and tight. You don't want to just put 2 or 3 threads in there. And then you're going to use the puller. Now we've already actually loosened this flywheel up just for video purposes. Then you're going to tighten this down, and then this is going to pull, and the flywheel is going to come off as an assembly. Since we've already done that, what we have to do is then you take the puller back off. So you take the puller back off, take everything out, set it to the side, and then what we're going to do is we're going to finish taking that 5/8 bolt out, which I'm just going to use impact because it's handy. And so here's our flywheel bolt. And then as soon as we get the flywheel bolt off, what we can do is we can actually just lift the flywheel off. And now this is, of course, we've already loosened it up with the puller. We just didn't show that step. One thing to be sure of is you do have the the stator back there, so there's going to be a little bit of magnet force back there. But then you can just pull the flywheel off, and there's the flywheel. You want to inspect the flywheel to make sure the magnets are all good. These magnets look fine, so you want to inspect the stator, make sure there's no rubbing on the stator. The stator looks fine. So now we're going to start working on getting the rest of the exterior components off. Alright, now that we have the flywheel off, we're going to take the exhaust off. They're just 1/2-inch bolts. I'm going to use the impact one, the electric impact. And they should come off pretty easy because these should not be too tight. So there's one exhaust. We're going to go ahead and do the second exhaust. So there's the exhaust. Now we're just going to take these. There's 2 gaskets on here. That might be causing some problems somewhere. So we're going to take these gaskets and throw them away since we're rebuilding this engine. Next thing we're going to do is we're going to take the carburetor and air intake off. To do that, really the first thing that you want to do, and I've kind of showed this in other videos, is you got to take the throttle arm off here. We're just going to take this out, and then, sorry, my big hands are in the way. And with this throttle arm, we're just going to put this piece back on here, just to make sure it doesn't go anywhere. Just slide it back on here. Like that. So now we got that out of the way. Now, next thing we're going to need to do is we're going to need to disconnect the fuel hose from the carburetor. So once again, it's a pretty simple process. I've gone over that before. I've actually worked on this engine before. We replaced the fuel lines about a year ago, I guess, or maybe 9 months ago. And so we've already replaced all the hose clamps. So now what we're going to do is we're just going to pull this fuel line off. That way the carburetor's free of everything. There we go. And gas is going to drip, but that's okay. So we're just going to pull that out, set it to the side. These are also 1/2 inch right here. Go ahead, take those off. I think my impact is down. Just in time too, because we just finished. So now we're going to take these, make sure these intake bolts are all the way out. And we should just be able to lift the intake straight off. So now there's the intake and carburetor. We're going to set that to the side. And the last external piece that we have is the stator. The stator is just 3 5/16 inch bolts that are on here. They may take a little bit depending on how long the stator's been on. Just a little bit of working at them. I just use a 1/4 inch socket, a ratchet in this case, with a 5/16 inch socket. All these parts we're going to clean up this afternoon and just mic them all out if they require it. This charging system works fine, so we're not going to do anything with the charging system. We may convert this engine to electronic ignition, depends on if everything pans out. One important note that is not really all that important, but can be important, is the starters on the P218 and the B43, depending on the model year, are different. On the P218, the starters connect actually to the bottom of this cylinder over here. I'm just kind of talking while I'm trying to do the stator here. So typically the starters connect to the bottom of this cylinder on the P218. On the B43, they actually connect to the oil pan. So if you're buying new starters, be mindful of that. That's certainly something to look at. Now once I have the 3 bolts off on the stator should just pull right off, and then it's actually, we'll have to undo, so we'll have to clean up this grime here real quick. It's actually, there's a metal tab right there that you can fold out, that this whole assembly will come off, and we're just going to go ahead and clean it up and do that. But that's how you take the stator off. And in the next video we'll start taking all the internals. We'll take the oil filter adapter and everything else off. So that's how you take off the outside of an engine. Now we're going to start working on internals.